Copcraft is a good series, having a solid duo, setting, plot line, and plot hooks for a second season to easily be picked up. However, there is too little for the first season to really feel complete in any sense. Mainly just a few vignettes and themes that bind the series together as a whole currently. The series is set in Santa Teresa City, an American city located in the South Pacific around the general vicinity of Hawaii. 15 years ago, a gate opened between our world and that of Reto Samania, which essentially is a standard high fantasy world. Farbani conflict occurred, and then communications between the United States government and the nations of Reto Samania were established. The beginning of the series proper has Kei Matoba, a hard-boiled cop, seeing his partner Rick Fury killed and being assigned a new Samanian partner, Talarna Exedilica, who is a knight of the realm tasked with rescuing a fairy. The entire plot and resolution of the arc takes about 3 episodes, or a quarter of the overall season. Something that should be noted is that this season does feel quite a bit rushed in several aspects. In part, this is a natural consequence of only having 12 episodes to tell the story, and so the conversation was either have one continuous story and try to weave in elements diegetically, or to have several mini arcs with an overlying central theme. They picked the second one. The main problem with this approach is that the elements often introduced, and usually the Samanian ones, usually have an exposition dump attached to it, or there is an ambiguous implication of the mechanics of how something works. Take for example, Talarna says that in the second or third episode that objects that a user has develop a bond with develops a bond and is able to have essentially true sight because of the life latena or mana or whatever you want to call it that the user has imbued with the object itself. However, it would have been nice to have these elements built upon further as the series progressed, instead of only being relevant to the arc and the very end of the finale, since it just seems that these elements are only introduced as they are relevant to the plot by and large, and go away as soon as they are not needed. For another example, when the vampire arc happens, and there is this prophecy and some type of book that is mentioned, there seems to be some type of a bigger plot that in play that never really gets brought up again in the series. And from someone who has not read the light novels, it just seems like a throwaway line in order to generate some tension and emotional impact. If these elements were developed more, it is obvious that there are significant elements that are contained but never really given that much attention as the series progresses. It also has things make more sense why the characters have the attitudes and dispositions that they possess. For example, a big theme is the assimilation and integration of cultures, but for the most part, the human characters that Talarna interacts with are fair to her, with the 2 of them being bigots in an explicit sense. There is not the awkward attempt of trying not to be offensive towards a foreign and marginalized culture or how the Samanians are suffering. I mean, it is shown that there are Samanians who go to work as prostitutes in order to pay the bills, but we never get a scene where a Samanian being beat up in broad daylight and no one does anything about it. We never get to see the banality of evil. It is always something that is significant and revolves around the plot of the show. The antagonists tend to be on the stereotypical end of things. For a police drama, most are corrupt law enforcement politician, with the exception of Zelana, who is a wizard, but he acts like a supervillain, which makes sense because he is from Reo Samana, and his main goal throughout the series is to drive a wedge between the two worlds so that Earthling culture cannot corrupt the Samanian world.
Exedilica, Godal Zanaman Pass.
Kunishibara, Farbizan Zan Milde, Morbizan Zanen Nas.
Garine Keshiba, Benazalion on Darina. Noimanos on Dorineri Abi.
Lefa Nora Dorina Dan, de Curazos Isme.
When he is introduced, there is the feeling that he is much more important to the plot, but then disappears from the main plot until the very end. His main motivation is quite straightforward. The human decadence in his eyes is corrupting Samanian culture by introducing evil things such as rock and roll and electronics. Okay, Boomer Luddite, Zelana definitely fits the chess master archetype, but is ultimately defeated by Kay and Talarna, understanding each other's differences and using that to catch him off guard. Again, the other antagonists are mainly stereotypes and just want more power or money, and that is where their characterization ends. The only other outstanding antagonist is the vampire, because it is a fish out of water scenario and a great illustration of the differences between the worlds and how they are equipped to deal with each other's threats. The vampire is also a quite sympathetic antagonist. She is the last of her kind in a foreign land and simply wants to escape. The actual characterization is quite well too, and it feels genuine, even if there are quite a few stereotypes used to spice things up. If we are using D&D terms, Talarna begins as a but acts as a pretty good foil to Talarna when she gets stuck in her Samanian perspectives. The show's biggest strength is that the protagonists get developed and shown to be well-rounded as individuals. Kay is shown to be both brass and overbearing during a summertime cookout, which gives us a hint on why his relationship with Cecil.
Go again. You're always such a pain in the ass when it comes to cooking, Kay. Has anyone ever told you that?
Yeah, you really are a control freak. I hope my son doesn't end up like you.
I am not a control freak.
That's just what a control freak would say.
Regular partner and gets stuck with Talarna. Talarna, despite being someone who is supposedly quite mature and has come into her own, still has a bedroom that would not be out of place for a prepubescent girl. She also acts quite childish and proud, but at the same time attempts to abide by the code of ethics she was raised with. We even get sections where it is just some B characters of the other detectives going out and helping, showing not only that it is simply not a two-man show, but rather a team effort, and that also how they all have personalities and interests outside of the interactions from our main duo. The biggest weakness the show has is the fact that, for the most part, again, the villains are simply not very compelling. Zelada, our main antagonist, is shown to have quite a limited influence on the world overall. He is someone who could be a considerable threat, but it seems that he simply is one because the plot demands it. After he jumps off the skyscraper in episode 3, he does not reappear until episode 10, and he does not really give a reason why he recovered or how he contacted his human accomplice, or really any legitimate reason. His human accomplice is only introduced as someone who is in it for money and power and all that good stuff. We do not get to meet him until he is needed in the story as well. It would have been a better setup and payoff if Kay or Talarna had some connection to him before all of these actions happened. It would be easy too. The FBI sends Chan in as a federal liaison in order to investigate a political threat occurring during Santeresa's mayoral campaign, and then the agent then warms up to the duo and then betrays them when they go to catch their perp. Instead, he is a character that is on the outside, and we as the audience never get a reason why we should be invested in him as a person. Again, the vampire is quite a bit more sympathetic in the end because it is shown she is a victim of circumstance, the last of her kind, and is again simply trying to survive in an alien world, who chooses death over being in a place where she is simply a complete and total stranger. The production quality can be limited at times by literally having still frames being zoomed out and in at various instances because the animation becomes super limited. This is not going to be another Last Exile or Blue Submarine number 6 in the department, a high quality story paired off with some excellent Sagaboo animation. There are some scenes where the entire entirety of the action consists of still frames and sound effects. On the other hand, the character designs are sharp and on point and definitely bear the trademark of Ranjay Murat, with the mix of anime and Art Nouveau, the ornate and the mundane. Well, the limited animation again can be jarring, but if you are into the story and the characters, it'll be fine. If this gets another season, something I would love to see is an exploration of Kay's and Talarn's respective pasts and what the international relations look like, possibly go darker on and how the various players are manipulating the political and social stability of both worlds. Take some inspiration from James Ellroy or Raymond Chandler, but only a very light dash of it. Do I recommend this series? Yes. I definitely do, unless you are looking for a darker series with a generally less optimistic outlook on life. It is a police procedural and buddy cop show as opposed to a hard Mr. Noir, and you can find this on both Funimation's website, on Hulu for streaming, and on Blu-ray as well. Before you go, don't forget to please like, comment, and subscribe. Anyways, this is Frontiers Horizon signing off, and until next time, stay frosty.